All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Inside Dirt Show. We are here for episode number 2 in the new Turning Points Media / ID Media Group, Maroochydore, not very sunny shine coast podcast studio today. But welcome, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. If you're watching on the YouTube, appreciate it. This is our new setup. And, man, the Chad Reed interview really set a great precedent for this moving forward. Great numbers, comments, shares. We've been lacking a little bit for a long time with the motivation to take this to the next level, and the new studio here that Adam's put together for us is a big thing to push forward. So really grateful for everyone's support on that latest episode, and we've got another big guest today, but we're really excited to talk to. But before we get to it, this is the Inside Dirt Show. This one is, of course, brought to you by Gas Imports Australia and supported by their brands with Thor MX Australia and also the Michelin Star Cross 6. Now, Thor MX Australia in the Australian Supercross Championship being worn by the likes of Joel Whiteman, by the likes of Sam Larson, both those guys winning top privateer awards at different rounds. And sport mode taking it to another level with the race fitment, and Winner Motorcycles also rocking the all white in their recap videos. Check that stuff out. And Michelin Star Cross 6, lots of Michelins out there dominating in the AORC. And also Sam Larson putting them in the top 10 in the SX2 main events at Supercross. So gasimports.com.au/brands. Check it out and support those that support us and support the sport. And that is a mouthful. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to our next guest here. This is going to be a bit of another hybrid show. We're going to talk about the recap from Adelaide because there was a lot to recap. And we're also going to delve into this guy's career here in Australia, his career internationally, and his post-career announcing that's just getting started as well. So he is the 5-time Australian Supercross champion. He is your current AUSX Open defending champion. We just said that because there hasn't been one since 2019. He has just been announced as the Raceday live co-host for the Super Motocross World Championships in America for 2025. And I'm sure there's some other things I've missed out, but Justin Brayton, welcome, mate.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is a nice setup you have here.
A lot of good things on the sunny coast, man. A lot of good things.
There is, and typically the sunny coast has a lot of sunshine, but not this week.
No.
Flew all the way from America, flew my wife in. We're going to have a nice little vacation without kids, and it's been raining for like 3 days straight. So,
as someone that got 3 kids to school this morning, at least you had no kids for the week.
That's true.
That's the one blessing there.
Yeah, we had a nice coffee and some breakfast. We got to chat a little bit, which, as you know, with 3 kids, is impossible to do.
Yeah, man. No, it's and we were just talking before, Justin. I didn't realize your roots actually ran so deep on the sunny coast. You've been coming to Australia for the best part of 6 years, I believe. And you've spent the majority. I mean, I'm an import. I've only been up here a year living. I was on the Gold Coast for a couple of years before that, and then Melbourne. But yeah, speaking before we went on air, you've been here a long time.
Yeah. So it just kind of happened 2016. Obviously, it was my first year coming to race the Australian Supercross Series. And obviously, I'd heard a lot about Australia. I spent a little bit of time here in 2010, actually down in Torquay near Melbourne. And I loved it. The beaches were great. But coming here in 2016, I was based out of Melbourne for the first couple of weeks. And just by happenstance, I ended up on the Sunshine Coast. I think Jim Boomba was round 1, and I fell in love with it. I said to Yariv, the team owner, I was like, I don't think we're coming back to Melbourne. I think we're going to stay up here on the Sunshine Coast. My wife would live on the beach. She absolutely loves the beach. So once she came up here, and then I only had 1 kid. And so for me, training all the time, riding all the time to keep my wife and daughter happy at that time on the beach in their happy place. Yeah, I mean, Once we were here, we honestly never left. Every year I came back, that was kind of my home away from home.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot easier to say to the wife, hey, I'm going to go travel for 3 months a year racing, but you can come with me and live on the beach.
Exactly.
I mean, the places you name, like Alex, Maroochydore, great spots. I mean, I love it up here, and yeah, it's really cool. And then obviously Noosa for the week on holiday or vacation, as you guys say. But yeah, the weather hasn't played ball. I guess the rainy season's arrived early a little bit. But hey, we're making it work. Yep. So Justin Brayton here on the Inside Dirt Show. And JB, we're going to talk, like I said, talk Adelaide, talk, what you're up to, retirement. I feel like you're just as busy in retirement as you were in racing. Yeah. I know you have some business ventures in the States, dealerships and things, I believe.
Yep.
So yeah, there's a lot to get into, man. But I guess let's start with the most recent announcement. I think just came out this morning or yesterday in America. I'm not sure. Ed, our editor for Inside Dirt, put it out on the website this morning. But you've just been confirmed as the Raceday live host for the Super Motocross entire season.
Yep.
Does that cover outdoors as well?
No, that won't cover outdoors. That's just Supercross and then the SMX, the 3 playoff rounds. So really excited about it. The whole Raceday Live thing came about several years, probably 3 years ago now. Actually was down staying with Kenny in Florida, riding before the Orlando Supercross, and had a crash and cracked my sternum and was out for a couple weeks. But that was when we had the Orlando, it was kind of a residency. You had a couple races there. And I went on Raceday Live for like an hour and just absolutely loved it. I was with my buddy Daniel Blair then. He was he had me on and I just really loved it. And I got several messages after that like, "Man, you seem like a natural, da-da-da-da." And so then I went on the next week. And then later that year, I was still injured, and they asked me to do the Salt Lake City round where it was just me and Dan Hummerd in there, and Daniel Blair went to the main booth for the broadcast.
Yeah.
And so I just threw myself in there. I didn't know anything about TV. I just said, all right, let's just do it. And then it just took off from there. It was like something that it kind of put me on the radar, I think, with all the folks at Feld, and then honestly put it in my mind of like, okay, I'm obviously winding down my career. Could this be something post-career? And thankfully the chips have really fallen into place. And now for 2025, it'll just be myself and Adam Cianciarulo, which will be awesome. 2 ex-racers that are really just off the track, pretty fresh. So I think we'll be able to relate. And I love the whole format of Raceday Live. I think we can dig a lot deeper into certain things. And so yeah, super excited about being completely on board, and it'll be a little bit of a new role as kind of host and analyst. Kind of both of us, Adam and I, will kind of split those duties. So yeah, excited about it.
It's great. I think Adam is another, obviously very fresh ex-rider that was, you could tell, I think he was destined.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, destined for a lot more in his career, unfortunately, injuries and such. But he has that personality, and you do too. Like, I've got to know you, I guess, I want to say surface level, but I've been interviewing you for a lot of years in Australia and been around you for a lot of years. And I feel like especially now the racer Justin has been retired a little bit. Like you're a lot more, you've always been very analytical and very well spoken on the mic, but you also have the races. It's funny because I was actually speaking to my partner just the other day when we were organizing your afternoon and going to my partner spa. That's what I was referring to, by the way.
Thank you for that, by the way.
No, it's all good, man. And I said, oh, interesting. I was on, Memories on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I was like, it was a photo of me interviewing you at you remember the Rhythm X, that straight rhythm in Tassie?
In Tassie, yeah.
And that was, I think 8 years ago. It was like 2016.
16,
yeah. Because I actually was racing that year, and then I wasn't because I folded my ACL at Toowoomba.
Yeah.
And then I'd already been commentating for a long time. Had some really good idea to have a comeback for Supercross for some reason. At like 29.
We always do it. There's always a comeback in there somewhere.
Oh man, I was like, yeah, this would be a great idea. And it lasted 2 rounds. But anyway. But yeah, I was like, wow. But then it made me realize that was a long time ago. And was that your first year here, 2016?
It was, yeah. And that just came out of nowhere. Like obviously being here in 16, winning the championship. And I think, man, right at like towards the last round, Yariv mentioned, hey, there's this kind of straight rhythm type thing in Tassie. You want to go? And I'm like, sure. I think, it's probably some start money or something and sort out the details. And
it was a big money race. I think
25
grand to win. Yeah. Because I don't know what happened with that. That was meant to be a multi-year thing.
Yeah.
Everyone got, like, I don't know if you remember the event. I remember, like, we got flown in, we got chauffeured, dinners. Like, I was just the MC.
Yeah.
And I got paid really well. And then I think it was meant to be like a 3-year deal because you saw the track they built. Like, that was a legit thing.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
Because it was like the straight rhythm. And then there was like a race.
Supercross track.
Right? So we did a Supercross race that was, I remember it being a weird format, but so I won that and then won the straight rhythm. And
yeah, you cleaned up.
Yeah, it was a solid weekend. And I'm pretty sure, I think I signed a deal that if I or something that they would guarantee me a certain amount for the next year. So I think you're right. I think it was supposed to be
was
a
supposed to
multi-year
be. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't even remember the promoter now at this point. But shame. Seemed like a good dude. I don't know what happened. But anyway,
The track was fun too. Like the whole straight rhythm thing and the Supercross track. It was a lot of fun.
Were you the only one? I don't know. I didn't even think about talking about this until right now.
Yeah.
There was the sand pit.
Yeah.
You were the only one jumping over it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was you and Will Hahn in the final.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a big jump,
it was risky though because there was either the rhythm before or after. I had to time it just perfect, and if you went that way, if you messed it up, like you messed up the whole lane. So it was very risky to go for it, but
yeah,
in a straight rhythm type thing, you have to go for it.
I don't recall you blowing that at all. I think you jumped it every time.
yeah.
But that's always been you. You've been very precise with your timing and rhythm, and big thing for you, I think.
Yeah, and honestly, people ask that a lot on like where I got that from, and I really don't know. I did some BMX for fun growing up, a lot of BMX jumps and stuff like that. I think maybe that's where I got it from, or just the reps of doing it. Like I just loved Supercross. Even growing up, like the more jumps I could hit, the better. Even go off in the hills and try to make my own jump and time things. So it was just something, so many reps of doing it paid off.
Yeah, it's very watching you, because I coached for a long time. And before I moved up to Queensland, you used to ride at Mosig's a little bit. Do you remember Cave Mosig's house? So I used to take my like junior Supercross guys out, and we would ride, like you and Duff would be out there, but we'd be right, not with you, but we'd be there.
Yeah.
And I would always just say to I distinctly remember there was that rhythm at Mosig's, you turn right, then there was that whole straight of whoops.
Yeah.
And they were probably not gnarly by your standards, but they were
good,
a decent set of whoops. And I would always just say to my guys, I'd be like, watch your feet, watch your hips, because the reps, like lap after lap, it was that you would tap your rear wheel on every, and it would be clockwork. But also your bike set up where your motor had the RPMs ready, like nothing ever sounded, I don't know how to put it. It just wasn't, it was effortless, very efficient.
Yeah.
So I did wonder, because we'll get into your career. We could probably start here. We'll get into the Adelaide results at some point. But I love digging deep with this stuff. So when did you actually turn pro in America?
Well, I did my first pro race in 2001. It was an arena cross. So back then, I grew up in Iowa, which is middle of the U.S., middle of kind of just cornfields and not much going on.
Middle America.
Middle America. In small town, about 20,000 people. And arena cross was like, it was it then. Like it was amazing, because through the winter, I couldn't ride for 4 or 5 months out of the year. So I was always into sports and things like that. And anyways, arena cross, like to me, Buddy Antonez, Denny Stevenson, those types of guys were the guys that I looked up to, because they were the arena cross guys. And Des Moines arena cross was always round one. It was actually this time of year growing up. So I would go watch, and anyways, that was my first ever pro race. I was a senior in high school, and I showed up and had no idea what to expect. Bone stock motorcycle. I think I put on some Renthal 997 handlebars, and we went to race, and it was the year that Damon Bradshaw was coming back on a factory Yamaha, number 45. So he was coming back to arena cross. You still had Budman, who was a 5-time champ. You had all these, a lot of Supercross guys that would show up. So anyways, it was a life-changing weekend. I literally showed up, had no idea what to expect, ended up being fastest in practice. I threw up in my helmet a couple times. I was so nervous. And then the race, I won the heat race. I actually passed Bradshaw to win the heat race. I still give him crap to this day. He has some excuse about his boots and stuff.
I never knew that he made a comeback to arena cross. I remember him making his comeback to pro motocross, like 97, 98, I think it was.
Yeah, he was number 10 on on the Honda, right?
Yeah. But I didn't know he did arena cross.
Yeah, so he came back to arena cross with Yamaha support, and he struggled a little bit at round one. But so I passed him to win the heat race, and then the main event, I think I got real tired. I think I was 7th or something like that. But anyways, it totally put me on the map, and then gave me the belief of like, oh my gosh, I'm racing with Damon Bradshaw, who's my hero, racing with Buddy Antonez, Denny Stevenson, all these guys that I'd looked up to for so long. And I think I made like, I don't know, $5,000 that weekend or something as a senior in high school. I'm like, this is sweet.
This is the life.
This is really cool. So that's really what kind of kicked it off for me. And then did arena cross, dabbled in that for a little bit, got rookie of the year in 2002. And then my big break was I was teammates with Buddy Antonez in 2004. And he really just took me under his wing. He was obviously very connected in Southern California, best friends with Emig and, Phil Lawrence and Jeremy McGrath, like these types of guys, Rhino. So I would go out there and hang with Budman, and then the series ended. I think it would have been around March or something in 2004, and I'll never forget it. It was Kansas City, Missouri was the final round. I drove up to Iowa. It was like a 4-hour drive. I was sitting at home on my couch, and Budman rang me. It was a Sunday. He said, "Hey, you need to get back to California. Eric Kehoe just rang me and said there's a fill-in spot available on Factory Connection Honda." And Billy Laninovich and Travis Preston had gotten hurt, and they were doing like a tryout thing.
Right.
So I literally jumped on the plane the next day. Budman took me riding on Tuesday. I had a tryout Wednesday, and I hadn't really spent hardly any time on a Supercross track, but I was at the Honda test track.
Wow.
And I was riding in front of Eric Kehoe, was the team manager of Factory Honda. A guy by the name of JC Waterhouse was the team manager of Factory Connection Honda. Several mechanics out there and crew chiefs, and and I was just riding, and then they said, "All right, do a 15 lapper," and I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh, I've never done this many laps." For one, never hardly ridden a Supercross track. Two, I wasn't that fit. I just came off arena cross. It's winter time, so I did it and pulled off the track. And Kehoe said, "All right, you want to race St. Louis this weekend?" And
the rest is history.
That's what started my Supercross.
And that started your relationship with Honda as well.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yep.
Because I remember, I'm trying to remember the rides you've had over the years. Were you a MDK KTM at one point?
That's what really kicked off my career. So I only did a fill-in for Geico Honda, what we know as Geico Honda's Factory Connection Honda then. I only did 6 races, and I got a couple top 10s. That really put me on the map of like, oh, this kid's all right, and he can ride Supercross too. So at the time, Motor World Suzuki, Andrew Short was on there, Daryl Hurley from New Zealand, Shea Bentley. I'm trying to think who else was on the team. A few like legit guys. Well, he offered me a 2-year deal, first year arena cross, and then I was guaranteed in 2006 to have a Supercross ride. So that's what really kicked it off. But I would say those were a lot of building years. I may have got maybe a top 5 or 2, but what really put me on a good trajectory was MDK KTM when I signed with them in 2008. That's what really.
So were you was it in Motor World Yamaha at one point?
Correct. 2006 they switched to Yamaha.
Yeah. All right. It's funny you say that because I grew up in the UK.
Okay.
But in end of 06, start of 07, I lived in SoCal for a while.
Yep.
And did like a off season before I went back. And I remember you being I think we were at Paris. I don't know. Do you have a memory of like you have TLD?
Yeah, exactly.
You just remember all these things, little things. And yeah, I wanted to ask you that. I was like, I thought that was you. Yeah. You Motor World Yamaha and TLD. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, so I got that year with Motor World. Shout out to Paul Lindsay because he's the one who really believed in me. Like I said, see me at those arena crosses. Then Budman got me that fill-in ride. And then Budman, after that, was kind of like my acting agent. And he called. He's like, "Hey, Motor World's got a deal for your son, a 2-year deal, $40,000 a year," which was my first time ever earning like an actual salary. So I thought I was rich, man. I was like, $40K a year.
Yeah.
Now I can live in Southern California. I can rent a house. And then, I got a couple top 5s, and that's when KTM kind of came calling and was like, all right, this kid can ride Supercross. Let's give him a shot.
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah, I do remember. It's funny, you sort of, so many years, they all blur into one.
Yeah.
But we'll come back to the career later, right? Inside Dirt Show. JB, obviously, 5-time champ here in Australia. We'll talk about that more in depth. Now we see you on the broadcast side with Australian Supercross in the booth for obviously round 1 at Redcliffe, and then this weekend just gone to Adelaide, and we'll see you in the booth as well at Marvel Stadium. I guess that's a natural progression as well, right? Like the relationships you have here with the championship and AME group. So was it always a plan to come back here and host and commentate, or how did that eventuate?
No, it was never really the plan. I mean, I had thought about it a little bit here and there, but I just didn't know what that looked like, what their TV, what their broadcast stuff would entail. And for one, it's a lot for me to fly here. It's a lot of money to get me here as far as just the travel, right? Just travel in general is a lot of money. So I never knew if it would come to fruition, but honestly, kind of last minute, Yariv reached out. He's like, "Hey, what would you think about doing this?" And then talked to Kelly Bailey a little bit, and they were so pumped to have me. And I was like, absolutely, I think it'd be amazing. Just like you said, my history here, I really credit Australian Supercross to kind of revamp my career. It really, it jumpstart my kind of the second half of my career, which is arguably the best parts of my, not only career, but also just life in general. So I feel like I owe a lot to Australia, to Australian Supercross, and to have me in the booth is something really, really, it's great for me, but also for, I think, the series as well to, because I lived it literally 1 year ago. I was on the starting gate, and to win that many championships, obviously to call, Dino and Joey and Cloudy and Moss and all these guys, like I've raced all of them. So I kind of know what their tendencies are. So to bring a little bit of that to life to the viewer is a lot of fun. And like I said, any time I can give back or help or whatever it is to Australian Supercross, I'm always here for it.
Yeah, it was an interesting time when you started your time here. I mean, we go back, 16 was your first full season, right? So we're going back 8 years ago. But you look at, you were, I think, like you said, perhaps unintentionally at the time, right? But you became a bit of a trailblazer where I think a lot of Americans were like, how do I get on the JB program?
Yeah.
Like I heard everyone talking about that because you would do Supercross in America, take 3 months off or whatever, and ride, stay in shape, come down here, live on the sunny coast, make decent money living and winning here. But I think there's something you had which some American riders don't, which I feel, I don't know, you were able to, I think assimilate's the wrong word, integrate, I don't know what it is, but some of the American, like Josh Hill, he fitted in here great. Like he'll come hang out here, he'll go, he's that kind of guy. You, a little more structured, a little more the family guy, but you still seem to really fit in here. Mm-hmm. But then you see some of the American, like I get it, right? Like it's not for everyone. It's a culture shock. It's probably as close to America as you're going to get.
It is, yeah.
But it's still culturally very different. Mm-hmm. But you seem to be able to bridge that gap where, like you said, your daughter spent about 2 years of her life here in total, and it's almost like a second home to you. Like when I'm messaging like, oh, hey, do you know where this is? You're like, yeah, no problem, man. Like, where everything is. It's kind of, I'm not talking bad on Americans, but a lot of riders, especially the big names that come out, like their boot camp, Supercross, motocross, they don't go outside of the bubble. So for you to be able to, Dean has kind of followed in those footsteps of you now. He's doing Arena Cross in England, Australian Supercross, race in Germany. Like, I think you got to be the right personality type to fit the JB program almost, right?
Yeah, I think not only personality, but honestly, I just got so lucky with the timing of it because I had a relationship with American Honda. I was winding down my career in America full time. Like 2016 summer, I was miserable. I was either going to be done completely racing or I was going to make some changes to where I wanted to do Supercross only. Because, a lot of people forget, like they think I'm just a Supercross guy, but I put my time in motocross too. Like I had, several podiums. I would grind all summer and fall and winter. Like I did the 12-month program for many, many years. And once I had my first daughter, I was like, something's got to change. It just has to change. And ironically, a lot of people know the story, but I was at my wife's family beach house, and we were talking about like, all right, what are we going to do? What changes are we going to make? And social media was fairly new to me. I'm still not good at it, but I didn't know at the time that Instagram, you could get messages. So my wife showed me, and ironically, I think, it doesn't say 100 something. It says like 99 plus. So I had, 100, whatever, however many messages.
Full inbox. Yeah.
And like the third message down was from Yariv. And I had no idea who he was and mentioned coming over for Honda. I looked at some pictures, and I think it was Cody Cooper at the time. He was number 10, I believe. And so there's a number 10 on a Honda already that I'm like, man, that looks good. Gave me like some 2012 vibes when I was on factory Honda in America. And one thing led to another. And the first year, that's really how it came about was Yariv, then one of the upper management here in Australia knew the president of American Honda at the time.
Yep.
because the deal.
Were you riding for Honda that year?
No, I wasn't.
No, you weren't. Who were you? JGR?
No, I was with KTM, with BTO KTM in 16.
That's right. Yeah.
But I had relationships with Honda still. Like
Previously,
I kept in touch with those guys. And one of my best friends was Cole Seeley's mechanic. His name's Rich. He's now the crew chief for Star Yamaha on the 450 side. But so I said, I deal with Uribe was I wanted a factory bike from America to come race in Australia. And that's like an uphill battle right away. It was just like, that's going to be difficult to get done.
Yeah, I'm surprised you pulled that off. Logistically, that's a lot of things.
Here's how it happened. It was crazy because I called Dan Bentley, who was the team manager of Factory Honda in America, who was my engine builder in 2012. Yeah. So these dots start to connect already. And he's like, well, the 2016 to 2017, the bike was totally going to change.
Yeah, that was the new gen Honda, wasn't it?
Kenny signed there. Yeah. Seeley was going to be on there. So they're like, we have a bunch of 2016 factory bikes. You can just take Seeley's or whatever. Right. But we have to get approval from the president of American Honda. And Dan's like, it's almost impossible to do that. Well, just so happened, the upper management here in Australia was really, really good friends with American Honda president. So literally 24 hours, bang, approval for a factory bike.
That's not meant to be, then I don't know what is, right?
Yeah, like, and even Dan Bentley was like, I've never seen something get done this quick. And next thing you know, I was flying to Southern California, and they built me a bike. I rode it for like a week and a half and flew here for round one. And
rest is history.
Rest is history. So not only the timing of the motorcycles and stuff, plus Honda was ready to win. They were, they had hired Geiser, they had hired Roxon. They told me at that point, we want to win everything around the world. We don't care if it's AMA Supercross, Australian Supercross, MXGP. Like, we want to win everything. So they were willing to provide me with the equipment, and then Uribe had the funds to make it happen. I didn't make a lot of money. It was heavily incentive based.
Most of the contracts are over here because we just don't have the economy of scale to, I know what the appearance fees are for the big guys at like a AUSX or something, and that's not sustainable across the whole championship for our economy of motocross and supercross. But the incentives are, what gets the job done, right? If you guys come here and race and win, it's worth doing. And then that you were like the catalyst for a lot of chess pieces, because Uribe had always had a really successful team, but like before you, he had like the likes of Ben Townley and guys that were meant to dominate, but then had career-ending injuries and a lot of things. Like, he would have Gavin Faith come out. Yep. Like I said, Gav, the first year you would hear Gavin and Seven Deuce Deuce would stay at my house in Melbourne, and Gav would win 250s a lot, but Uribe spent a lot of years building, and I felt like you were the first piece of the puzzle where he started more dominating. Yeah. And obviously now he's got 17 riders across, all the different classes, and pretty much is the team. Yeah. And I don't think enough can be said about the program he's built, like globally.
Globally, it's unreal.
I mean, it is actually the only program of that caliber. I know he has partners in America. I don't know the full deal behind the Firepower Honda deal, but he's an interesting character, and I'm sure that you've got to know him over the years, but his passion for racing and what he's built. But I think you were a big part of that. Maybe you say, oh, here's a factory bike from America. That connection grows with American Honda globally. And I think it was, thinking back on it, was one of the first steps to him getting to where he is now. So it's really cool to think about. But wow.
And we're still, Uribe and I are still really, really tight to this day. We still work on business deals together. I still help with Shane McElrath. Uribe sent him an offer. Shane honestly didn't want to do it. He was just going to stay in America, ride for the team he was riding for. And then Shane called me out of the blue just to get my opinion. And I think within a day he signed with Uribe, and here he is now. And I think it's going to be a life-changing experience for him to race here, make some good money, win, go back to America. We'll see if they can put something together in America. But to your point about Uribe and even obviously the relationship with Honda, for sure introduced him to some right people, and he did the same to me as well. Like, I really felt like we met each other at the perfect time, where he was building, he had the means to build, he had the mental fortitude to really want to build. Because look, it's a difficult proposition to be a team owner. It just is, especially in Australia.
Yeah, the business model. I've done it.
Tough,
I did it for 2 seasons, and I was out. I was like, this is not. It's not a viable thing. So for him to have done that, that's why I commend him, because I know what it takes. You know?
And then for him to pull in all the outside sponsors, and then ultimately led into him starting a team in America. His relationship with Fly and WPS has grown. It's just been awesome, and he's really got a lot of outside sponsors to even come to America to sponsor him. And then one of my proudest moments was getting him not only winning over here, he had never won a 450 Supercross championship, to win 5 in a row. But then we went to America and got on the podium at an AMA Supercross on a privateer team, just basically him and I, my mechanic Duff. Obviously, you had some great partners and some great people on the team, but to be able to podium at round 2 when everyone was there, everyone's healthy, that was really special.
What year was that?
That was 2021 Houston Supercross.
That's right. I'm trying to, again, so many years between here and America. Because the year you won Daytona,
2018, yeah.
That was 18.
Yeah.
And was that factory Honda?
No, that was Motor Concepts.
Motor Concepts. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, once you did the 16 season here with Honda, were you always on Honda after that in America?
I was, yeah. And how that worked was, so once again, it's amazing to reminisce a little bit, because the storylines of how things just added up and how they made sense and how they fell into place is actually unbelievable. So once again, I'm over here riding. Dan Bentley calls. He's like, hey, we want you on Honda over here too. Troy Lee Designs Honda went to KTM. So they had some budget left over for like 12 months that was going to go away. And they said, we need to put it somewhere. We'll go wherever you want to go. So I literally, there was like 5 or 6 teams that I met with and talked to, and I kind of was like, I didn't have a dangling carrot, but I had some Honda support that was going to pick. And honestly, love him or hate him, I know he's got a lot of controversy, in and amongst a lot of it's just his riders. But Mike Genova, I really liked him as a person. And then he had the means to pay for it. That's the biggest thing. Like, so many teams can say they've got money and they got this investor and they got this sponsor. We all know that it's very few of them actually come to fruition and actually can make it happen. Genova had deep enough pockets to where if things fell through with any sponsor, he could fund it. And then I thought Tony Alessi, once again, love him or hate him, that guy, if you're on his team, he has your back. The bike's going to be good. And anyway, so I looked into all that. So I said, all right, let's take this Honda support to MCR. And I rode there for several years. So I would come over here, race, and then go back home and race.
So yeah, inadvertently, the 2016 contract here for Supercross, you rekindled those connections with American Honda. You end up, and then that became the JB program that everyone spoke into, right? Yeah, okay. I was trying to
back on factory Honda in 2020.
That's right. I knew you did a year. I couldn't remember what year that. So you win Daytona in 2018, which I guess we can talk about that. A lot of industry noise. It was really surprising. I think you won Daytona of all Supercrosses because
that's surprising to me too.
Well, it's the least Supercross, right?
Yeah.
That year was a bit ruddy and wet, or not particularly?
No, it wasn't too bad.
Okay.
No, it was a pretty technical track. There was a couple quads that we were doing. Like, if any Daytona track would suit me, it was that year. It was more technical than most years.
Yeah, because I seem to remember it wasn't like you lucked into it. Like, you won it legit.
No,
and don't take that the wrong way, but
no, for sure, yeah.
When you're racing the caliber of guys you're racing, there's normally only 1 or 2 races a season where someone else, other than the big 3 or whatever, get a win. And you certainly didn't. I don't think there was first-time crashes or anything like that. It was.
Tomac did crash on lap 1, which for sure helped me, because in that, which he's still unbelievable there. I mean, he won however many in a row. But if you rewind a little bit that season, for one, that was one of my favorite bikes of all time. It's top 3 that I've ever raced. And then the week before was Atlanta Supercross. I win one of the Triple Crown races.
That's right.
I win the heat race in Daytona. I qualified well. I went on, I believe I won 4 or 5 heat races in a row. I got multiple podiums. It was a year where I was legit. Even earlier in the year, I got second at Anaheim 2, I believe, Triple Crown. It was a year where I was in the top 5 almost every week. I was on the podium, winning heat races, and then just so happened that one Daytona weekend just fell into place. And yeah, it was, I mean, honestly, I even think about it today. It was unbelievable that I won that race, how I won it with Tomac, you know, catching me late, able to pull back away. Like it was just a storybook race for me that I'll never, ever forget.
Or even it's Daytona Supercross by Honda, isn't it? I think.
That was the first year that it wasn't by Honda.
Right.
But Honda hadn't won it in a while, and ironically, that it wasn't by Honda. Then a Honda goes out and wins it. It was pretty cool.
I guess it still meant a lot to them with
for sure.
The
Yeah, they still had a big
that.
presence there.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, that really is yeah. I'm always big into the journey, and yeah, things aligning. That's it's really special that by happenstance that you've got that connection over here, and it really kickstarted. Because like you're right, I guess it did kickstart the second half of your career,
really
because there were years, again, it's hard to remember it all. I tried Googling it last night and I was too tired, I'll be honest with you. I was trying to remember it all, but I remember you being on JGR Yamaha in the Muscle Milk JGR days.
Yeah, those were good years.
I remember lots of variations of Justin Brayton, but nothing really stands out to me results-wise until later in the career, which, like you said, I know you got, overalls outdoors, you're on the podium, you had good results, but it really was how old are you now?
I'm 40 now.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
So, really, it was your 30s.
30s were my best years.
Your best years, yeah.
And I still tell, from Cooper Webb to Ken Roxon to, guys that I still talk to a good bit, especially about career, and they're getting older. And I say all the time, the best years, I even said this to Dino the other day, is look, the best years of my career were like 32 to 37. Podiums, wins. It was the most money I ever made in my career. I was making close to $1 million a year for several years, racing Supercross only. It was the most money I made from gear companies when I created this program. And my thing to them was, look, I can race, like my 4 years at JGR, you're making a little over $500,000. You're getting a couple podiums here and there in Supercross, but then I would go in motocross and I'd maybe get a podium or two a year and not be that great. And my thing to the sponsors was, look, I can do well in Supercross for you. I can be a top 5 guy, get some podiums, win a couple of heat races, and get you some exposure. And then we go motocross, and like no one cares about the 5th place guy in motocross. You don't get any TV time. You don't get anything. Well, let me take motocross off. Then I'll go to Australia and I'll win for you while really nothing else is going on. So then we can get on the cover of magazines. I can be on the front of websites. So it can be the social media talk. And then I'll go to Paris Supercross and I'll go to Geneva and I'll win those or be on the podium. And it really took some convincing, but I think after I did it the first year, sponsors and manufacturers, and they're like, oh, we can get on board with this. Like this is a good program. And then once I won for Urive, then it was like, okay, now I can demand some more money to come back. Then you win again, and it's like
snowballs.
It just snowballs.
Thinking about it, I feel that you were actually the one that started to break the mold again, because I feel that if you look at the 2000s, everyone went Supercross only. I feel, and then I feel like when the GFC hit in America and pockets tightened up, I think the manufacturers and realistically, the teams, gear companies, everyone was like, no, this is what we've got. And for that, you're going to do everything because this is what it is. I feel like there was an industry pushback where, you had the likes of, whether it was Chad or James or whoever, where they said, no, we're going to do Supercross only, but they were getting these massive contracts to race half the year, right? And you see now they're even doubling down on that in America with SMX, love it or hate it, whether that was a direct competition to World Supercross or they claim it wasn't, whatever. Yeah. But now American riders are super, like, you're going to really struggle to catch anyone doing Supercross only anymore because of the SMX money, right? So you kind of, again, maybe inadvertently, but you became the pioneer to bring that back a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, and a lot of it's just teams, right? So once again, it comes down to the opportunity I had with Honda globally that just the timing was just perfect. So if you're going to race for an American team, they typically do Supercross and motocross and now SMX. So when you're signing a contract, that's the contract. That's your deal. And honestly, I took a leap of faith on a lot of it. Like coming over here for Urive, I didn't really have a Supercross deal leading into the next year. Just so happened relationship-wise with Honda, it worked out. MCR was looking for some support, so that worked out. So really, like people say they want to get on the JB program, and I've had so many calls from riders about that. But it honestly, like if you were to try to put it together today, Urive you could do it with, but name another manufacturer that you could really do it with. That I could do all my own gear. Yeah. I could have a deal in America. I could have a deal over here. I could still go race Paris, Geneva, like. So it's definitely a unique thing. But now with SMX, I think you could still pull, well, Kenny's somewhat pulling it off as far as Supercross only, and then still going to do SMX, but you have to be a top 5 guy in Supercross to score enough points.
It only works if you're an elite level guy.
If you're an elite level guy, yeah.
And I think also it's personality type, right? Which I feel that, again, speaking into you integrating here in Australia, you're really personable, you speak well, you're analytical. And I think for the business side of the sport, like I think I sort of said this when we were talking to Chad the other week, like how different he approaches life now. He's not an athlete anymore.
Yeah.
And how different he is emotionally, mentally. Like you were the elite level, but some guys that race at the elite level, the mindset that allows them to do that, it probably doesn't allow them to be the most well perceived as their personality type or within the industry, like the ego, whatever. Like, and I don't judge to do what you guys do. That's just how some guys have to approach it.
Yeah.
But you seem to have that personality, like you say, when people call you, like, hey, how do you put this deal together? It's kind of just like, well, you're just JB, you're Justin Brayton, and the deals fall into place around you because of the person you are, attracts the deals, and it's kind of the magnet that, oh no, we'll do that for JB because he's going to be good for that or good for us or whatever. Whereas if you're just the kind of guy that doesn't stand out in any way, shape or form, like you're not the big social guy, you're not the YouTube vlog guy, but you're the business guy. Like you're here in a button-up shirt, you got a good head of hair, like you're good for TV, you're good for the brands. I think that is very underrated in the sport as far as go win everything and you can do and say whatever you want.
Yeah.
But this is you. I'm not saying it's an act, like this is who you are, but it works really well for the program because like you said, it won't just happen for someone to call you like, how do I do it? Well, it's not that simple.
Yeah. And honestly, it purely comes down to relationships. It just does.
Absolutely.
And I was raised the right way, I feel like. And look, I was really fortunate that I was never a championship guy in America. I was just off that. You know, my era was Villapoto, Dungey, Reed, Stewart. Those guys were paid millions and millions of dollars to win races. And I'm actually look, I would have loved to have been those guys. I'd love to sit here and say I'm a 3-time champion, in America. But the reality is I'm not, and I had to pave my own way. But I also feel like I'm thankful for where I was at because I didn't have that pressure. When I got podiums, we were happy. When I got some top 5s, we were happy. I was making good money. I made more, rewinding a little bit more, I never thought I'd race a Supercross. Now I did almost 200 Supercross with several podiums and race win and traveled the world and all this stuff. So I think my gratitude for where I'm at on each and every team always speaks volumes. I went back to teams multiple times because, whenever I would leave a team, I never really left any teams on bad terms other than BTO KTM. That's a whole nother story, but that's the only one where I was really,
was that the year that you and Baggett left?
No, Baggett came after me. It was being short. Okay. I mean, each of us were owed hundreds of thousands
Seems
of
like
dollars.
a theme with that setup, huh?
It was bad. I hear. Yeah. It was terrible. But other than that, like I would leave on good terms. JGR hired me back. Factory Honda hired me back. And the only reason they did that was purely just relationships. I respected every person on the team. I didn't take anything for granted. I worked my butt off. I kept my nose clean. I didn't party. I was there to race motorcycles, and I respected each and every person on that team each and every day. And I was just so thankful to be there. And I think that was a breath of fresh air. And they didn't have to pay me a premium. So they were getting me at good deals. Like my JGR contracts were, $400,000 or something like that. Plus I could do gear deals. So it wasn't like they were breaking the bank to have me. And I got them premium results at times. Other times I didn't. I'd get 7th, 8th, 9th. But I had the
you fit a
capability
good
to get
pocket.
up there.
Yeah, you fit a good pocket in the industry space where it's like you said, only so many guys can get $2 million a year.
Yeah.
Sign on plus bonuses.
And then the pressure that comes with that.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to face that pressure, which, double-edged sword, right? You have that pressure, you're good enough to win. You've probably won before. But for me, having that pressure, that's also why Billo and Dunge and RC, and they retire at 26, 27 years old.
They're burned out and they've done it all.
They also have enough money to
finish up, yeah.
To be done.
Well, I think that, again, if you look at everyone's journey is their own.
Yeah,
and
totally.
That's why I love doing these like long form interviews, because you really get a chance to dig deep. And it's like, yeah, you didn't have the career of a Villapoto or a Dungy, but 99.9% of motocross racers would want your career.
Yeah.
And you got to do it your way, which there's a lot to be said for that,
Yeah, and now to have the opportunities that I do are just purely based off relationships once again, to be able to have a seat on the broadcast team. It's not like NFL or NBA where there's 100 seats for ex-athletes. In our sport, there's basically 4, maybe 5, and I'm thankful I have one of them. And that's built on, a long career of building relationships, being well-spoken, to be able to call the, president of KTM or call these people and have real-life conversations with them. And, so doing it my way is a lot different, but I'm definitely thankful for it. And if you would have told me this years ago, that I would, for one, be able to race a Supercross and make the main event, I'd think you're crazy. But now to rewind and look at all I've done and achieved and all the friendships I've built over the years, the places I've traveled. I mean, we're in Australia right now. My wife's up the road having coffee with a friend that she met over here. Like, it's just, it's been amazing. And to continue that journey, doing what I'm doing now, being in the broadcast space is something I definitely don't take for granted.
Relationships is key, man. Like, I try not to hijack the pods, but my story, like, I say this all the time because, like, my journey is super unique. Like, I grew up in the UK. Parents made me finish school, always raced, but like never went to that next level. Like did some European racing, but it was like school, not going pro, and I wanted to do it so bad, but we didn't have the means to do it, and it so I got sick of that, and the freestyle thing was blowing up back then in 2000s. So I was like, well, I'm going to go do that, and I found a way to get to America, and I traveled to America for 2 years.
Doing freestyle. Oh, right? That's cool. I didn't know that.
No, I mean, look, I wasn't at X Games and stuff, but
Did you flip?
No. Nope. It wasn't for me.
Cans, knacks.
Yes, seat grabs, hot attacks, and,
nice.
Pretty much everything.
Dude, then that was like...
Or in the, I'm talking 2007, 2008, you could still get... I mean, I went to foam pits and stuff, and it... For me, at the time, it was like the economy of freestyle was we rode for Feld, actually.
You do shows at...
Yeah, we do shows. So we would do like Monster Jams. I never rode a Supercross freestyle show, but I went to a bunch of them and sort of hung out on the road.
Yeah.
And we had like the IFMA ramp to ramp tour, which was just like a ice hockey stadium. They'd lay the turf and you'd have 2 ramps in a circle. But, it was like 2 guys flipped and got flip money. Everybody else got upright money.
Yeah.
And for me at 19 years old on my own in America, the risk of landing on my head and being in hospital, like I didn't have family or backup. So I was like, no, I'm just going to be safe. And I've always been pretty methodical like that. And then when that kind of wrapped up, moved over here. I didn't want to go back to Europe. Didn't want to go back to England. My mum lived here. And I didn't ride for 2 years. I didn't know anybody. I remember I went to a MX Nationals, the first one in 2011. I just drove myself up there to check it out at Broadford. And I said this on the interview with Chad the other day, because I say it in the hope that the Aussie guys listen and understand what they have here.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, oh my God, there is so much opportunity here. Like, I grew up in the UK in a transit van in the privateer pits, and there was no real way. Like, you're buying rides on GP teams or European teams. There's no way out. Over here, there's race plans, there's sponsorship. I was like, dude, I'm going to get a bike. And I went and financed the bike from a dealer, started riding again. Year later, I was racing nationals and got as far as I could again on my own. But that helped me grow my coaching brand. And then I had a factory just up the road from Urive, and I was PT, had my own gym set up. training moto guys, coaching. And then I got into TV and I was doing TV for nationals. Yeah. But all this stuff was because I was just someone willing to be like, hey, sir, I'm this guy. I would love to get to know
paved your own
your
way.
brand, your, you know, what. And I say to people, I went to an MX National in 2011, drove myself home, didn't know anybody. 3 years later, I was the anchor on TV. Like that shouldn't, it's and that's awesome, not like, oh, I'm so awesome. It's like there's a missing gap there with the Aussie guys not seeing the opportunities they have.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is Aussies are very like Aussie battler, blue collar. They're from the farm. They race moto. They retire. They go do. Kind of frowned upon almost to stay in the sport to a degree. I think that's finally changing now. That old school attitude for me it helped me a lot. So I was like, well.
Yeah, you capitalize.
Yeah, if you guys don't want to see the opportunity, I'll take it, you
totally.
know. But yeah, it's, again, the relationships thing, I guess for you guys listening, it's so key in any industry, right?
And communication can't be overstated either. Relationships and communication, no matter what you do, I tell people all the time, whether it's business, racing, marriage, friendship, and it's all communication. And
you sound like my fiance.
It's the truth, though. Honestly,
no, it's true.
It really is. Like, and I struggled with that, especially when I first signed with JGR. First year 450, like I just wanted to grind. And if somebody wasn't willing to do that with me, I was like, all right, you're out. You're not a part of my program anymore. But I needed to communicate through that, you know, and
what your expectations were, what your boundaries were. Yeah.
So I'm a big fan of you just over communicate. What's on my mind? All right, you're gonna hear about it, good, bad, or indifferent. And I really think that's where Yariv and I got along. Like.
He wears his heart on his sleeve too, man. Like people talk and joke about that, but he's passionate.
He wants to win.
He wears his heart on his sleeve, and yeah.
And he'll spend, like, if I needed certain parts for my bike, or if I wanted to stay on the Sunshine Coast on the beach, all right, what's it going to cost? Well, it's going to cost this, and all right, I'll cover 10 grand of it. Can you cover the rest? Sure, no problem. If that's what's going to make you win and help you win and help your family be happy, which in turn makes me happy, then like, let's do it. But also, to go back on the Australia thing, a lot of people talk about the JB program, but if I came over here and I didn't win, there's no JB program. Like I had to win. So now when I talk to people that want to come over here, I was a top 5 guy in America getting podiums, and I still didn't win super easy over here. That's how good these riders are. Luke Clout and Reardon at the time, and Ferris, and Will Hahn was over here. Todd Waters was good. Like there were so many guys that were fast and are fast today. Mossy.
Well, I think that's a good segue into, like, let's move into Oz Supercross now.
Yeah.
And talk about that, because obviously we're drinking water. Adam, the Kiwi, he put Kiwi because of Brody Connolly. He was he wanted to have a reference there. He is, right?
I like it. I'm a fan of Brody Connolly.
And I'm a massive fan of Brody Connolly. And we'll get to him in the results for SX2, because I think what that kid is doing is so understated. But we'll get to that. But yeah, like you said, I don't know the perception. I ask as many Americans as I can of what the perception is. Like, we had Daniel Blair on the podcast via a phone interview a while ago, and I was like, what is your perception of Oz Supercross? Like, how do you see it? And I think there's still this perception to a degree, perhaps, that it's just easy off-season money. But like you said, you had to come here and win to do what you've done. And it's not as easy as people think, as far as the depth of, like, I say it's the strongest domestic series in the world, because I don't consider AMA to be a domestic series. It's a world class. And obviously MXGP is MXGP. But then outside of anywhere else, I think Australia is the strongest field of riders. And unfortunately, we're so far away from the rest of the world that it's our benefit and our, disadvantage.
Yeah.
Because our industry is capped by our population, and the growth of everything is, we just don't have the economies of scale of Europe or America. But with that being said, like, we're going to go to Marvel next weekend, and there's going to be, I think, this isn't like hype, like, oh, it's nearly sold out. I legit hear it's pretty much sold out, which is, I think, 40,000, which is going to be the biggest Supercross in Australia ever. So hats off to AME Group and everyone involved in Australian Supercross, because that is going to be, I don't get nervous commentating anymore. I've been doing it for that long. It really doesn't, you get a little bit.
Yeah.
But standing on that floor with that many people, I'm probably going to be a little,
it'd be such a
little
cool
buzz,
feeling,
you know?
Yeah.
But I think for you, I'm interested in your opinion. Personally, I think the riding level is super high. I think there's a lot of talent like Connolly, like Kingsford, like Clout, whoever it is that on the right program and the right time in America could be competitive.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you tell guys that? Be like, hey, don't think you're just going to go over there and clean up. Like, what is your advice when guys call you about it?
That's exactly right. Like, don't expect you to just collect off-season money and go over there and win the championship easy, because it's not. For one, you have several different, variations of Australian Supercross track, but there's also so many different variables that, for one, you're traveling to a different country, that you're going to somebody's home where they're racing in front of their friends and family. For two, the tracks are a little bit more tame than we have in AMA. And three, nobody wants to lose in their home country and see somebody else come over here and win. So, and then you have guys like Cloudy, who, to me, if he got on a legit factory 250 team in America, I think he's a top 5 potential podium guy every week. Like, he's that talented. He's that good if he really committed himself.
I think the year that he went over there with Urive and broke his femur, I think that year would have been the year that kept him over there, because you just saw him getting going, and then unfortunately he had the injury. But I agree with you.
He's that good. He's that good. And then, you have other guys too. Mossy's been a world-class rider for a long time. But then the guys that are coming over here, like I said, for me at the time, I was a top 5 guy in AMA, and I didn't win every round.
No, there were a lot of years where you had hard. Like, I don't remember every year, but there were definitely years it went down to the wire.
Yeah,
like
2019 went down to the last race. I had kept it pretty hush hush, but I broke some ribs and I was in the hospital for like 3 days. And
I remember that, because have we talked about this before?
So I barely got through that one.
Yeah, because I remember no one knew. I didn't know. Like, you kept that real quiet, and I remember I was doing my job. Doing my job on the stadium floor, and it was you and Moss, I think. Was it? Who was
Cloudy?
Was it you and Cloudy?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, you're a little off the pace, Justin. The Aussies are coming for you. And you gave me this look through the helmet. And I was like, shit, I've said something here. Like, I don't know what that look means, but I was like, I'm going to shut up now. And I just kind of wrapped it up. But
that would have been Wollongong, I think, because I broke ribs. So it
was
Wollongong. At Latimer's place, just up the road from here. I just hit like I don't even know what, it was a tiny little double before whoop section. I went over the bars and my chest smashed into the brake reservoir and broke some ribs, punctured my lung, in the hospital for a little bit. And I remember, like, I just wanted to keep it quiet, because you just never know. Like, you didn't know if somebody would talk about it and deem me not safe to ride. Like, there was so many
you're better.
marks.
I mean, I think now you're on the other side of the fence. You probably wish riders were more open.
Oh, for sure I do, yeah.
I get why at the time you wouldn't, and I get why riders don't do it, because we're not in a stick and ball or a team sport where you get benched and you can just come back and, like, the season is finite. You're here to win. So, you can't just be like, oh, I broke 3 ribs. Race safe might be like, nope.
Well, that's what I was worried about. So I had heard that through the grapevine that they can
bench you. Yeah.
They can bench you and say, hey, you got a punctured lung a week ago, or you broke some ribs.
In reality is probably the right thing.
It's the right thing to do.
The duty of care.
But
like,
there was no way I was not going to race.
No.
Yeah. So I got through it. I think I got 3rd at Wollongong.
Was that the year they went up into the
it was a big dust bowl.
The dust bowl. Yeah. I mean, I got pictures of me in qualifying commentating, and I'm just like, sunblock and then dust, just fully dusted out. But they had a big set of whoops that year, didn't they? Down the
but then the guys they were big, and then they
were going off the end.
Right.
Yeah.
But then they didn't, like, I was crushing everyone even with that through the
you weren't doing the cheater line. You were going down the middle.
Cheater line, They would like pull away a little bit right there, and I was like, I couldn't get myself to do the cheater line. But anyways, I lost there, and I think I lost the red plate. So I was 3 points behind Cloudy going into Marvel.
That's right.
In 2019, but we had a weekend off.
Yes, you recovered.
And I just went to work that week. After I knew I could ride a little bit, I went to work, and I'm like, I'm going to dominate this race. And that's what I did.
That's the
one
year
of my favorite wins ever.
Anderson, Reed, like there was a stacked lineup there.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, that's right. That was just before It's unfortunately with Australia, the COVID thing, because man, that killed 3 years of our
I know, yeah.
racing industry.
Could be an 8-time champ.
Yeah, true.
7?
So obviously the years we didn't have Supercross. Well, I didn't even think about that. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, you just sitting at home like, well, I guess I'm not doing the JB program right now. Like,
yeah, you couldn't travel. You guys didn't have Supercross for a couple of years, right?
We didn't have Supercross until 2023, so it was 3 years.
Yeah.
And we had, I think, 1 year, 21 or maybe 21, we had 3 rounds of Pro MX, like Pro Motocross.
Yeah.
And then literally the last round of Pro MX is the most ridiculous stuff. But anyway, like where were we? Newcastle, I think, Maitland. And literally cops rocked up at the event.
No way.
And they were basically going to shut it down.
Really?
And then they had to do this makeshift solution of like the crowd had to stay over here.
Yeah.
Interstate hits had to stay over here. We had masks on.
It was all so ridiculous.
Oh my goodness. Like I know where you stood on it, so I didn't want to get too, but absolute ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then we nearly didn't get home. Like I was sitting there on the Saturday, and I think my son had his tonsil surgery on the Monday in Melbourne. I'm in a state, and I pretty much said to the promoters, I'm like, hey man, I'm probably going to go because I can't not get home.
Yeah.
They were about to ground all the flight. It was ludicrous. Anyway, that was the last round. I think we did 3 rounds that year, and it got cancelled. But to give you an idea, that was the stuff that was going on here. Like it was, so there was no way Supercross was going to happen. But I forgot about those years. So you literally, you could have come back 2020, 21, 22, and won 3 more. Damn.
So I came back in 23 and won.
Because 5 sounds impressive, but 8 sounds a whole lot cooler.
8 would have been nice. Yeah. But back to Australian Supercross in Adelaide specifically, a lot harder to win than most people think. But, how about the battles this year? Obviously, when Dean was announced to come back, number 1 plate, all that, he was the favorite. Then all of a sudden, Yariv
adds Joey to the mix. Yeah.
And the level's high right now. And I will say, to recap a little bit, I guess the whole season, I came into the season, I thought Mossy was like maybe the favorite next to Dean and Joey, but I thought for sure he would challenge them to Marvel. Like, come down to the last race. He's with CDR, so he's been kind of the biggest disappointment. His last race in Adelaide was okay, but I've been impressed with Cloudy. Cloudy's been able to match those guys at certain times.
I don't know what happened to Matt.
Hasn't looked the same, huh?
No, he hasn't. The preseason, he looked really good. I mean, he started riding he did a couple outdoor rounds, bounced around a couple of programs, just doing mossy things.
Mm-hmm.
But then he signed for Dakar so early, and that was it was just like, that's the Aussie guy that's going to challenge the Americans. Like, and you know yourself, you've raced him. He's very capable. He's a multi-time champ.
Yep.
But I don't know the missing piece. I don't want to put it on CDR. I don't want to, but it seems strange to me that he challenged for the title last year on a privateer Yamaha. Mm-hmm. It's the same bike. And this year he's making really good money to be the guy to challenge for the Supercross Championship on what's supposed to be a better bike, and it's not happening.
And had the proper preparation as well.
Yeah, like he wasn't injured. He wasn't running his business. Like he was all in.
Ready to go. And even he was saying that. I interviewed him before the first race. I'm here to win. And I believed it. I was like, I know you are. I raced you. I know how good
I know
you
what you're about. Yeah.
I know you're not afraid to bang bars. I know you're an amazing starter. You've got the speed. Like, there's no missing ingredient other than to just go get it done. But from the first practice at Redcliffe, he didn't look the same. No. Like, he struggled. He was tucking the front. To me, the bike looked way too stiff. He just couldn't turn. He couldn't get through the whoops very good. He just looked off from the first time.
Seems to be a theme, like, because Ferris did the same thing. He went from a privateer Yamaha, Pro Max, signed for CDR, and then all year, again, same bike.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's a component thing, if they have to run certain things. I know Dean had some deal where he could use his own suspension guy, I believe. Like, I don't know all the details, but I'm trying to understand how a privateer Yamaha versus what's supposed to be the Premier. And I know teams and politics at times, but I don't feel like Dakar would sacrifice the success of his guys to run parts.
Yeah,
doesn't seem to make sense to me.
No, he wants to win as bad as anybody. And I will say, in the years past, especially when the new generation Yamaha came out, I think Dakar maybe had the best Yamahas in the world at one time.
A lot of times, man,
they were really
behind
good.
the scenes, America and Europe, they would have this triangle of communication.
Yeah.
And I remember a few times, because I was training one of the Yamaha guys for a while that rode back in like 14, and I would go to the test track and hang out a little bit at gym training them. And some of the suspension components, they'd have guys from Europe. Like Dakar was legit program.
It's the real deal, yeah.
Real deal.
And I still think it is. So I don't know.
I think it is too. But again,
right now.
you're doing the same as me. I'm like, why is Mossy not? But I think that crash at Redcliffe also, the night one in the rhythm, I think if anything, because before, he was struggling, but he was still hanging it out.
Yeah.
And then I don't know how he got up from that crash.
Yeah.
Did you see it?
I did, yeah.
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 So you go confident. Look, Mossy's a brawler, but I don't care how tough you are. You take a couple of those, it's going to knock your intensity down a little bit. But no, look, Mossy, and Clout's emerged.
Yeah.
Clout's been fast all season. They've struggled to get that Cowie where it needed to be outdoors. He was having a lot of crashes. He'd run up front for 10, 15 minutes, but he's aggressive. He couldn't ride like that in an outdoor track for the whole moto on that bike. End of the season, they finally figured it out. He basically podiumed the last 2 rounds, nearly won motos. He was back. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
But to see him mature, because you've raced him for years, but you know Cloudy, it typically is either going really well, or if it's not, he starts doing the head shake, starts looking behind, and he tends to have crashes.
Yeah.
This year, is fine. Even Pro MX, it hasn't changed, but Supercross has really changed for him. And that maturity is, like, he's right in now. I think he's 12 points back or heading into Marvel.
Yeah.
The biggest surprise for me, though, honestly, is Joey. I don't know if you expect him to do what he's doing. I didn't.
See, I did. I'm a huge fan of Joey. I think if you take a look at his career, he was an amazing 250 rider, was one straight away from being a champion in the 250 class. Obviously, that Zach Osborne, Savachi,
infamous takeout.
The infamous takeout in Vegas that year. But then Joey goes out, he leads championships in motocross. Like, he's such a well-rounded rider. And then he goes to Factory Cowie on a 450, qualifies fastest at some races. I think he got a podium in motocross. And then just by chance, he has this, kid coming up that's Kawasaki prodigy, Adam Cianciarulo, that is slated to take his ride. So he loses his ride and unfortunately has just battled ever since. But I think Joey's an incredible rider. I still think he has years where he can be at a very high level in AMA Supercross and motocross. So for him to be doing what he's doing now doesn't really surprise me. The only thing that did was just the little time he had on the motorcycle. Like, I think he only had a couple weeks coming into Redcliffe. So
yeah, literally, I think
what he's doing has been impressive. But as far as his ceiling, he's a great rider. He's a great starter. His turn speed's unreal. I think now with Yariv, hiring him, I think their bike's going to get better and better. And it's pushed Dean to be a better rider as well. I mean, Dean has been going for it. He's had Joey on the ropes and beat him a couple times and probably could have beat him a couple more without those few mistakes. So it's been a fun championship to call in the booth. And just as a general fan, the level's super high and a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I think you're right about Savachi. In hindsight, you look at his career, it shouldn't be a surprise. But like you said, his career has been so turbulent the last few years with rides, dropping in and out of teams, World Supercross, AMA, doing the Triumph thing and outdoors.
Back down to 250,
like
just
anything he could to figure it out, right? But I think how Australia perceived it, I'm going to put myself speaking for Australia right now as far as Supercross, but you dominated in consistency for so many years, right? Like, Clout would beat you, Moss may beat you, Reardon maybe in a moto. Yeah. But throughout the series, you were able to be the fastest guy in the whoops, lowest guy in the turns. You were able to get the job done every week. They would find a round or a Triple Crown moto to beat you, but you were the guy. Last year was the first time I saw someone elevate to your level in Dean, where you were the whoop guy, and he was able, I've said this many times, he was able to match you in the whoops and at times even be faster. Like, in my opinion, you may think different, but there were a few rounds where I was like, wow. But then again, I've said this, I didn't see Dean Wilson ride like that since he won a championship in America on 250. He had this,
Yeah, no, he rose up for sure.
He definitely rose up, and he felt like he could win. And you could see that.
Yep.
You came, I can't remember the exact breakdown last year of where you got too close to the championship. It eludes me.
Newcastle was when we were close, and then that last race I crashed down the start straight.
That's right. That's what happened, and it
Cloudy,
kind of wrote you out of the.
That was kind of it.
Yeah, because it was only 3 rounds as well, right? So, but yeah, Dean kind of, took it to that next level a little bit. Where had you not had that crash, I think you were right in it from memory. But then you retire, so it's like, oh well, the torch goes to Dean now.
Yeah,
and you just sort of go, well, he's the guy.
Yeah,
Savacci's coming off of a 250 triumph season. Turbulent Supercross seasons. I just didn't expect him to go to the level that Dean and you were at.
Yeah.
But then watching him at Redcliffe, I was like, oh, wow. Like his ability. What's really impressed me with Joey is how fast he is off the gas in the turns. He's kind of very Dungy-esque where he is literally 1/2 a bite length lower and tighter and just takes, kind of like Cooper Webb, like they just take the shortest route around the track. And Dean is more of a shoot 'em up, blows the top of the berm, clicks forth through whatever.
Fast in the whoops,
And it's very exciting. But then I'm watching Joey just inch away segment after segment, and it's very repeatable, very methodical. And I'm like you said, he's only been on the bike, what, a month now, 5 weeks?
Yep.
It's really impressive.
And the starts. Like I even said to Reeve coming into the season that I feel like it's literally going to come down to the starts, and that's where Joey will win. Is the starts, because I do think, and Dean's had his chances. You think about round 2 and Redcliffe tips over on the inside of that rut before the whoops. Dean had that race won. Then it gets to be an exciting finish. That's where me and Hammy were calling in the booth. Joey passed him, Cloudy passed him. That's the one that Cloudy won. Dean had that one easy.
Now, so Dean has definitely given up as much as Joey's.
And then Adelaide as well.
Yeah.
That was his to win. He just didn't capitalize.
I'm watching Dean, I'm on the floor, so I see a lot of the stuff that TV doesn't capture and what even the grandstands don't capture. And I'm seeing Dean coming down the start straight at Adelaide, the reverse turn. And he's halfway down the straight with his clutch in on the limiter. And I can smell the clutch frying. You can see his clutches slip in. And I'm like, that's frustration. And he was very vocal about himself being frustrated, but I think he is now seeing that those little mistakes, he's still in it, but now that kinda. But then the reality is, we go to Marvel. You got Hunter, Jet, and Webb. Yeah, very much potentially the podium right there. So in order to beat Joey, he's going to really have to beat one of those guys. Which
he'd have to beat all of them, I think, to win the championship. He'd have to win, and Joey gets like 5th, right?
Yeah, right. So you look at that task and go. Oh.
And that's why Dean, shout out to Dino. That this past weekend really proved how much he wanted to win. I mean, he was in tears after the race, and it just shows how much this means to guys. And he knew, and I think I said it to start the broadcast, that this, to me, Adelaide was a must-win situation for Cloudy and for Dean to get back in this championship. Neither one were able to get it done. And shout out to Joey. I mean, he's literally hooked together with Cloudy's bike on the side of the track at one point, and still comes back to win the race, win the event.
That was gnarly. We watched that actually Saturday night. We got back to the Airbnb and we were watching the replay. And I was like, was that Joey's fault? Was that Cloudy's fault? I was trying to, I don't think, because they were heated too.
Yeah, Cloudy was not happy.
Yeah, we'll get that up real quick on the replay. But,
I think it was a racing incident, honestly. Like, Joey, there they come down the straight right there, and Joey over jumps a little bit, lands to the flat, and then he said this to me. Joey said, and I believe him, that I think they would be okay, but the second Joey ran into him, their bikes got connected. Yeah. So I think he would have just bounced off him and then still able to create some lean angle to the left-hand turn. Joey
they're still together now, and it's like you saw. I don't know how Joey's bars and grips were still on that bike, because like you see when Cloudy knows that Joey's fallen on him, he just starts shifting gears, trying to get away from him, right? Like he's like, get off.
Yeah. And if you're Cloudy, obviously, I would be mad too. Like, look, I had position. You just ran into the side of me, and now here we are,
both tied
laid out on the side of the track. And then that's where, Dino goes on to win that race. But there was also points up for grab for fastest lap in each race, fastest lap time.
Yeah.
And I know Dean was blaming himself for not having the fastest lap time in the last race because he had it until 2 laps to go. But to me, the race that determined it was when Dean won, Jed had the fastest lap time in that race and took that point.
Well, Jed was catching him, right?
Jed was catching him. Which shouldn't happen if you're Dino. You're like,
nah.
Nothing against Jed, and Jed's, we can talk about him too. He's been extremely impressive to me in Supercross. Not a lot of Supercross experience, but for Dino to be out front, have track position, and get caught by Jed, like you have to take that extra point right there. And if he was able to get that, then
well, it was the one point that gave Joey the overall, wasn't
Correct,
it?
yeah.
Yeah. So that you said Dean gave up 2 fastest lap points
Correct,
that could have kept him in the championship hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I mean, Jed is someone we can speak into. I'm not surprised, to be honest. He's
Really?
a very technical rider.
Yeah.
Like you watch him ride an outdoor track, he's a big dude. He's very aggressive, but also he's that rider in Super Pole that will scrub, drag a foot peg.
Yeah, I haven't seen that side.
Yeah,
of him, so.
it's only the stuff he doesn't ride like that for a 30, in a moto, but he has that ability to just peel it inside out, and he has that. So I wasn't that surprised to see him bring that to Supercross because where he was making up the times in my opinion with Dean was his corner speed. Yeah, he was so fast rolling the turns. Yeah, and that
once again, Dean's up high, right, blowing out the top, using the clutch.
Again, I was on the start straight dodging bikes all weekend. There was nowhere to stand, right? That turn before the rhythm, the 3-3-2. That was where Dean was just getting eaten up because he kept going, and after the whoops, he was going all the way to the powder to turn down. And Joey comes in a lot more square, and I don't know how he does it, but he must have his bike set up in a way that he can pivot and come back on himself. Jed is more of an arc, like edge of the tire guy, like end of the whoops and end of the start straight. He'd already be on the edge of the tire 10 foot before the turn. So it's just a nice gradual turn, and then he can load up and accelerate. And I don't know if Dean's struggling for setup on the 25. It just doesn't.
He's pretty new to that bike.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find something that's not allowing him to turn the way he would. But yeah, and again, the Aussie tracks go away different. I always say this about Australian dirt. I would love to get your insight on this. Seems to me, I've rode in America, I've rode in Europe. Most of the tracks in those 2 parts of the world, even when it gets rough, the bumps come up out of the ground to a degree. You still get ledges and square edges, but it seems like you can stay on top of stuff a lot more. But the way the dirt in Australia is, it's so dry, arid, that to me, the track falls in on itself a lot more. And same with the bumps. So it's a lot harder to stay on top of things. And I feel like if your setup's not there, maybe he's just missing that this year a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing about Aussie dirt is there's hardly ever anything to turn off of. And especially in Supercross, you run your bike so stiff. That was always really challenging for me. Like if you give me a rut, game on. Like it's unreal. Obviously then you have something to turn off of, but there's very little times you have a good rut in Australia. So it really helped with my hard pack skills. And I think that's where Joey, his bike set up maybe a little bit softer in the front, stiffer in the rear, so he can pivot, get to the gas a little sooner, where Dino's maybe a little bit opposite of that, which in turn makes Dean good in the whoops, good bike setup there. Joey's not as good in the whoops, but he can make it work and then make his time up in the turn. So it's pretty unique. But yeah, I've never ridden tracks like you guys have over here. Like they're really, really difficult, super hard packed. And then they get some marbles on top, which is really, really tough.
Like the window of the dirt here, like even in, like I've done a lot of schools in Adelaide over the years coaching, and we had a lot of junior nationals, and everyone's freaking out on track walk on Sunday for the 85s and the SX3. Oh yeah, I'm like, dude, in 2 hours it's gonna be dusty. Watch. Like, no, look. I'm like, trust me. And literally by the final SX3 main event, it was dust bowl. And because the air is so dry, especially down south. There's more humidity up here. I think it keeps a bit more moisture in it. But yeah, it's a different animal. I just wanted to get your take on that. But
there's no place like it in the world. And it's funny because Gavin Faith and I are from the same small town in Iowa. Yeah. So I've been friends with him for a long time, and he was racing over here.
I think he come over a year before or 2 years before you, right?
Yeah. So he told me it's like the hardest pack conditions you've ever ridden, and I'm like, all right, so it's probably like Phoenix or maybe Anaheim 3 some years dries out. And he's like, oh, no, harder pack than that. I'm like,
How?
There's no way.
Yeah.
Like Phoenix is as hard pack as it comes, or Vegas. He was like, oh no, it's more hard than that. So he wasn't lying.
Well, I remember like riding like Lake Elsinore.
Yeah.
And that's as dry as you can get, but still you can go so fast on that dirt because it has some weird ability to hold. Like,
well, and before you get to that point, you form ruts.
Yeah.
Where here it's like, I don't know, for some reason there's not like good ruts forming, or there's a certain point of the day where like you just, or maybe they prep it and then the rut doesn't come back for the night show.
I don't know, man. But again, have you ever been to one of our pro motocross races over here?
I've never been, no.
Yeah, that's the complete opposite because it's winter. So I think one of the handicaps for Oz Supercross is we race in summer or spring. But the problem is we couldn't race in winter because, well, you could if it was a Queensland Championship because winter here is amazing. But the rest of the country, like you said, it was raining in Melbourne when you were here for Supercross. Like, go there in winter.
Exactly.
So, like, half the races in pro motocross are full rut. Not like mudders, but it's just very different.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's quite the thing. So talking about SX1, heading into the Marvel, we'll move now to SX2. And the nice touch from Adam with the Kiwi on the drink there. But Brodie Connolly, to me, Justin, obviously Shane is expected. In my opinion, Shane's expected to win.
For sure, yeah.
Thompson, he's done enough over here for enough years that he's going to be a top 3 guy.
Yep.
I did not have Connolly slated to do what he's done purely because like he crushed it in pro motocross. And even last year, he won a couple motos, and I think he got it overall at one point. And he was the next guy after Wilson Todd and Nathan Crawford that were the veterans in too. But then Connolly did what he did in outdoors here. Then he went and did the GP wildcards. Then he went and did Motocross and Nations. I think he literally rode for like a week before. You probably know more than me. I don't know the exact details. But for him to come out at Redcliffe and be right there with those guys, I was like, that is a sign that this kid is special.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because Yariv, he's been telling me about Brodie Connolly for like 12 months and speaks very highly of him. Like, hey, this kid's good enough to get a factory ride in America and really take this thing to the next level. And, I kind of like in one ear and out the other, I'm like, Yariv likes him and he's winning there. It's a totally different thing to go to America. But now I'm on board. And the biggest reason I'm on board is he has a belief system that he can get up there and battle Shane. He can get starts with them. He's not afraid to push those guys around. He's a winner, and guys can have speed and they can look good in practice and, they can have good technique, but to truly want to get up there and bulldog your way around and have the belief system to go win and have all the other ingredients, he's got the fitness, he's got the skills. Like I'm a huge believer of Brodie Connolly now, and I think his future's very bright and sky's the limit. Absolutely. I think to have the crashes he's had too, like that crash at Wollongong where
he's
a tough kid.
Like I think it shines through. You see the difference between the Americans and the Aussie. I mean, I know Brodie's a New Zealander, but same side of the world.
Yeah.
Where I watched the crash that Mossy had at Wollongong where Joey pinched him, and I think it was Joey or Dean, one of the two, and Mossy should have checked up. He should have been like, got the move, and instead of going 3-2 or whatever, he tried triple out and it wasn't there.
Yeah.
And he flies off the bike. Same as Connolly. I think it was either Thompson or McElrath passed him before the stadium triple.
Yeah.
And instead of just checking up, slotting in, seat bouncing and regrouping, he's like, no, I'm going to cut under.
Yeah.
And he pretty much just seat bounced the triple and landed on his head, like on that tough block. I don't know how he got up from that, but obviously he's just a tough unit. He's had a few crashes like that this season.
Yeah.
To me, Adam's looking at me like, it's just how the Kiwis are built.
They're tough, huh?
But I don't know your 2 cents on this, Justin. But to me, I watch Shane and Cole and Joey and Dean, and they will jump with their rear axle that far from someone's front wheel or their bar, and they carry their awareness of track position because they've ridden so much more Supercross is inches. Whereas the Aussie guys, I think that's why you see so many of these injuries in Australian Supercross because it's like the 9th Supercross we've raced in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
But the ability for them to be bar to bar and wheel to wheel and still execute the triple, still execute the whoops, do the rhythms, that's the difference to me. And you've seen a little bit of that with Brodie where it's just, he's not afraid to push through it. He's not scared, but it's what's catching him out.
Yeah, it's just experience. Like you said, it's just as simple as that. Shane's done years and years and hundreds, thousands of laps more than Brody Connolly has. And that's what's so impressive. And same with Cole. Cole's been racing a long time. So for Brody to be up there looking like one of those guys, like he literally looks like he belongs. It's no fluke that he's been up there. He's been on the podium a lot. He's won races. He's gotten great starts. He's putting himself in good position. Like all the things that you do to become a champion and race winner, like he's doing at a young age, very inexperienced at Supercross. So that's what tells me you get him a little bit more time to, for one, figure out what he likes in a motorcycle. Because that's another thing is when you first ride Supercross, you don't know what you want. You don't know what works, what doesn't work. You just ride it. Or Shane and Cole, they know exactly what they want, exactly what bike setup they need to go fast and to execute lap after lap, get that close to guys, win races. Brody doesn't know that. He's just winging it right now, and he's doing a great job. So, like I said, I think sky's the limit. I think if you can get him in front of, the right people in America or even in Europe, like you said, he's done a couple races over there. I think he had some bad luck, but
I think
he's got the skills to get it done.
None of it went his way, it seemed, in China and the wildcard GPs that he did. But yeah, I agree. Firm believer that he will at some point find his way somewhere. Yeah. And watching him ride Supercross, I think it has to be America. Like before, I was like, oh, it'll be GPs. Yeah. But now watching him ride Supercross, I'm like, he needs to be riding Supercross now in America to
learn.
Which
I think he went last year, right? But got hurt right away.
He broke his ankle, I think, or something.
Yeah. So I think that's been the path. And that's a cool thing about Uribe too, is like he doesn't hold anybody back. Like I think he helped put together the deal for Jake Cannon to go to Bud Racing in Europe. He's already advocating for Brody to get to America. Okay, if this is what you want, you know how much work it's going to be, but this is a dream. Let's go do it. He's not like just keeping him here for him to win for him only here. He'll like get another guy, help him win. And then if your aspirations and dreams are to go somewhere else, he'll help facilitate that.
Absolutely. I think, like, you look at Wilson Todd doing some Supercross the other year, like, that is the other unique thing about that footprint of the team that, hey, you want to go race a Supercross, go stay at Millsaps, do an off-season boot camp, pre-season, whatever. It's a unique model. But, and then obviously that Shane is where I expected. I remember, did Shane ever win a 250 SX championship?
No, him and Sexton came down to the last race in Salt Lake City.
And Sexton won it, right?
Sexton was on Geico Honda and Shane was on Star Yamaha.
That's right. But regardless of him, I've been saying he won, so that's probably something I shouldn't say on the mic anymore. But anyway.
Close. I mean,
enough.
He's that caliber of rider. He came close to winning multiple championships. He's a multiple race winner and, got forced out of the class and unfortunately hasn't quite found his way in the 450 class. But I think he will.
That's what I was going to say. Enough. I haven't seen him ride like this since he was on that Star Yamaha and obviously pointed out of 250 regional Supercross. So to me, this is, I hope, similar to yourself, I hope he brings this momentum from what is going to look like a championship in Australia, formality at Marvel to get it done. Is he signed with that Cowie team again for Supercross outdoors?
I think he's working through it. I think the hope, I think him and Uribe get along really, really well. I think if I'm Shane, now I don't want to speak for him, but I like the model of Australia and U.S. Somehow put that together. Somehow, the hard part for Uribe right now is he's got obviously a lot of riders and high caliber riders that demand a decent amount of money. So how do you keep Joey? How do you keep Dean? Dean's obviously doing a hybrid type program. A few AMA Supercrosses, racing in England, racing here. So if you're Uribe, how do you keep Shane on board? I think they're just trying to work through that. And then if you're Shane, you're going to do everything you can to
keep this going.
Keep it going, right?
Absolutely. Okay, interesting. I thought he'd signed for that Kawasaki team again in America. So
not yet.
Yeah, okay. It would be great to see him stay in the fold and kind of run a.
Now he can't race 250 in America, right?
That is the shame.
That. He pointed out. I know him and Joey both. Ironically, the two guys that kind of pointed out that have wanted to get back in the class both are riding for Uribe at the same time.
Yeah, I guess it's not ironic though when you talk about your journey re-establishing your career path. It kind of makes sense where I think you find yourself where you're supposed to end up.
Yeah,
Joey
totally.
spent time here in the past in Australia with the Williams family. Like, he fits in really well here.
Yeah.
You know, Shane, I didn't know much of Shane or about Shane before he came here, but he's super, like,
Great guy.
very humble, very, you know, obviously man of faith, everything like that. Like, it's sometimes a little different to how it is in Australia with that side of things, but he's just a really good dude.
He is, yeah, and I think Yariv appreciates that, right? Once again, it comes down to relationships, and I believe that Shane will do the right thing and be grateful, be appreciative, be all the things that you would like as a team owner, and he's winning races, and he's potentially going to win a championship. So I think if you have all those things, and if you're Yariv, of course you want to keep him around, and then if you're Shane and having this type of success, because no matter where you are in the world, you win races, you make money, and obviously, Shane's at a point in his career where it's more of a business now. And I think it's time for him to look outside the box a little bit to where he can make the most money, have the most fun. Him and his wife, Joy, could travel the world and really just enjoy life and soak it up. And I think the best place for him to do that is to try and figure it out with Yariv.
Well, I remember Gavin Faye's program.
Yeah.
Because I said Gav stayed with me. I know him quite well. And to a degree, he was like, I would use America as, you know, he was never quite at the level of Shane or yourself in the States.
Yeah.
But he was like,
arena crosses.
Arena crosses. He would do East Coast or West Coast, base himself out of MTF. And he's like, I'd make some money in America, but it would be my marketing and my boot camp to come win in Australia and everywhere else in the world I raced.
Yeah.
And it's like, for Shane, not that I think he would do it to that degree, but it's like, okay, if Yariv, I'm pretty sure Yariv would find another way to get another 450 on the track for the season. And if he's getting some expenses, he can do gear deal. Maybe he can, whatever it may look like. And then
figure it out, right?
Figure it out, right? Yeah. Like all of a sudden, you may only be making $5,000 a weekend, getting 12, 15, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it still keeps him viable to then come over here and make really good money and be a big name guy here. So,
and enjoy it. Right? That's the thing. Once you get to, I'm not sure exactly how old Shane is. I think he's around 30. But once you get to that, like you really got to enjoy it. And what I said to Shane was, maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, but Shane, you're probably not going to be an AMA 450 Supercross champion. The level is just way too high. So where do you fit in right now? And is it viable for you to continue running 10th to 15th in America all year long? Do teams really care about that? Do manufacturers care about that? Probably not. Where can you fit in somewhere like your Reeves and win races, make a lot of money relative, like he can build up and make probably just as much money as he was for Star or TLD back in the day, and really just enjoy life. Like he doesn't have 15 more years of career, He's maybe got 5, 6, 7. And so how do you want to enjoy that? How do you want to put a little money away for, kids or whatever for future? And, but I think the number one thing is just, it's fun to win races. You can see him smiling. It's relatively easy for him. It's not like, could Brody beat him? Maybe. Could Cole beat him? Maybe, but probably not. Like you said, he was the favorite coming in and he's delivered on that. So it's a lot of fun to do that. It's fun winning races no matter where you are in the world. It just is.
Yeah, after Redcliffe, he really got it figured out.
Night one was like,
I was a bit like, oh, but I attributed that to just figuring out the tracks, the bike.
Yeah.
Everything here is different. The start procedure, it's just different, right?
Yeah.
And then I think Cole would have been a lot more competitive if he didn't spend half the season trying to saw everybody's front wheel off. But that's a whole other
that
deal.
Was an interesting way to start the year for Yariv, especially like having all those guys in the truck and then there's 3 of them down in the same turn. And I like Cole off the track. I don't know him that well, but he's always treated me with respect. I think he's a friendly guy. On the track, he's definitely made some questionable moves, but also he's here by himself. He wants to win. And I think he was good enough to win it those first couple of rounds and a good enough rider to do it. And
I think he smelt Shane was not quite there either. I think he wanted to capitalize on that.
Yeah.
But I said, I don't know Cole other than to talk to him off the bike, and he seems like a really good dude.
Yep.
I try to be really neutral with this side of what I do because I have a real business in the pits, which is my agency, and I don't try to be too outspoken with anything race related. But he's made some really questionable moves.
Yep.
But racing's racing, right? But yeah, interesting deal. All right. Justin Brayton here on the Inside Dirt Show. This one's being brought to you by Gas Imports, the Australia 25 out now, and also the Michelin Star Cross 6, which is dominating many years of the AUSX Championship, and also on a few of the privateers out there in Oz Supercross. So check out gasimports.com.au/brands and find your local dealer locator on there to get you the latest in 25 Thor or the Michelin Star Cross 6 range. Justin, time is flying. It's been close to 2 hours already. But what I do want to talk about before we wrap up, obviously we've covered most of your career. I asked Chad about this. I want to ask you the same thing. A lot of talent in Australia right now in the 85 class, like the Chattery 85 Cup.
Yep.
Which has even surprised me, honestly, how
Those
quick.
kids rip.
Dude,
Yeah.
rip. Like, I said the same to Chad where I was like, first year it was announced, I was like, oh, that's cool. Chad's endorsing it. Not dismissive, but I was like, cool.
Yeah.
It'll be good to have 85s back, whatever.
Yep.
And then last year they got going, seeing them ride this year, and then also seeing the level that SX3 is at. You could argue that some of those kids should be in MX2 or SX2 already, like Jay Cannon or Birchall or whoever.
Yeah.
But I don't know how plugged in you are to the amateur scene in America. Outside looking in, I feel the amateur scene's kind of broken in the States a little bit. Doesn't seem like the pathway that it used to be is there anymore. And then I look at what we're doing here with like these 85 kids just fully on pro supercross tracks at 13 years old and just teeing up the triples, jumping the rhythms. Like but they don't look that out of shape doing it, you know?
No, they look like Shane McElrath out there doing it, you know? I'm not that plugged into the amateur scene in America, to be honest. I love what they're doing over here, you know? Obviously, Chad grew up racing supercross at a really young age. And that whole era, it seemed like, you know, you had from Medi, Burner, Chad, McFarlane, and like there was so many of them that came up, I guess, racing supercross and riding supercross at a really young age.
At that age.
And the reality is, if you come to America, you have to race and ride supercross very, very well. You're not going to just come there and, you know, make it as just a motocross rider. You probably should go to MXGP. So I think if you want to come to America, practice your supercross skills early. We're seeing it now, this next kind of wave of riders like Hayden Deegan. Hayden was riding a supercross track on his 65 in his backyard, skimming whoops at, 10 years old or whatever it was. So I think we're seeing it more and more. I'm really plugged into Club MX, being based out of just outside of Charlotte where I live. So I'm down there a good bit, and I see all these amateur kids. They're all riding supercross. I mean, they have, I think 4 supercross tracks there now, and the amateur kids are always riding one of them, it seems like. And so to be plugged in at such a young age, get that timing down, and just get the feeling of what it's like to ride a supercross track is really cool. And then to come over here and see these guys like, it's rather Jack Nunn leading the points right now in the CR22 85 Cup. He's unreal. Yeah. Like, watching him ride is like I said, watching Shane or one of those guys ride a supercross track.
Well, it's really, all to play for you. I think there's 2-3 points separating the top 3 riders, so it's all for the taking. Or Lawler's on 69 actually, so it's between Nunn and Thomas for the title. And Thomas, kid rips outdoors, like really good to watch outdoors because he's kind of little. Like Nunn is the elder 85 rider, and he's probably
big
he's on the
bike.
verge of being too big, right? Like you watch Thomas seat bounce triple and get over it clean, and Nunn's bike's like loaded up, and he can't quite get that distance because he's just so much bigger. But Thomas outdoors, like a good worked 85 is fast on the right track. Like he looks like a mini pro guy.
Nunn's been overtraining with Daniel Blair, I believe, right?
I believe he spent did some arena cross, and I think so, yeah. But no, Lawler, Ford,
great rider.
Cooper Ford out of Tassie. Expected more out of Ford this season, but he had a lot of injuries this year, unfortunately, just even before we got to Supercross. But no, all those kids rip. And then, SX3, obviously Cannon. And can we get the points for SX3? Adam, I forget.
Virtual came out first round and dominated.
Yeah.
Rounds 1 and 2. I was really impressed. He's still got a decent points lead there, but I couldn't believe rounds 1 and 2. I mean, he just looked like the class of the field, looked like he belonged in SX2. So he's got a pretty big points lead there. Should be able to get it done.
He rode Supercross really well on the 8, like the Wollongong you're talking about back in the day in 19.
Yeah.
Virtual was on 85, and I remember him tripling some rhythms. Obviously, we had all that time off, but he did well in outdoors this year. He was like a top 5 guy, but didn't excel like he is in Supercross. So Hannes, he just lost the title to Cannon in Prom X.
Oh, really? It was close.
Well, Cannon got hurt last year here. Do you remember at Newcastle? You wasn't on your team back then, so you probably wouldn't remember. He crashed in the whoops during the day. And bike went up, and the fork lug came down and blew his spleen and stuff apart.
Wow, I didn't know that.
But it was so gnarly because he had really bad internal injuries, so they've gone and stabilized him and trauma and all that. He didn't know he broke his scaphoid because he was just healing internally. Yeah. So then he goes to ride, and then I think he had to have scaphoid surgery. And then he didn't ride until the week of round 1 of Prom X. Oh, wow. So he just spent the whole season kind of building, and he won the title in the end, but it was every round towards the end, he was knocking off points. But Cannon, I think, he's going to Europe, obviously with the Bud Racing Cowie deal. He said something about maybe doing Anaheim 1 as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he said that Bud are trying to get him out there.
Yeah, Bud, even back to the days of Marvin Muscam, Bud brought him over to race Anaheim, and I've been racing in Europe for a long time as well, and Bud Racing's been a huge staple at the Paris Supercross and Geneva Supercross and all that. So it's cool to see him get that opportunity. I've been impressed with Kai Woods. There's that time when I watch him ride, just during qualifying and practice stuff, I'm like, he's got skills. He's good on a motorcycle, and I like the number 10. Woods is
it looks good, and because it's the red gas, it almost looks similar. Now Woods is. He's been coming for a few years. Mm-hmm. He's pretty rough. I don't know exactly. I think he's definitely senior. He's got the black numbers. So I don't know if he graduates next year or if he stays. I think he stays down again from what I hear.
Okay. And he's got skills.
I hear he's got a good deal next year where he's going.
Okay.
But
you can't break the news.
Nah. I try not to be that guy. You know how it is. There's so much stuff in the pits where it's if you could talk about it. But For Woods, he's always been the guy that's winning or crashing. Yeah, that's kind of been his deal.
I see.
So to see him mature in Supercross has been really cool. He reminds me of, do you remember Josh Keisha? Did you ever have much to do with Keish?
I was teammates with him might have been 16.
Yeah, 16. That's when he sort of came back.
Yeah,
because I rode a bit with Keish that year. Yeah. But same as Josh, very rough around the edges, just says what he thinks.
But good dude underneath it all.
Great dude.
Such a great guy. Yeah, he's fun to be around.
Oh, man. I lived with Josh back when Josh was on 50. When I was a kid, I lived in Australia for a little bit.
Yeah.
And we met the Keishas at a local track and actually ended up living with them for a while. And Josh was on a Pee-wee. I was on an 85.
No way.
Just way back when. But same attitude, right? Just kind of loose, just runs his own deal. But Cannon, he's, I think because they're both small as well. Woods, because they're both small, like him and Keish, he just reminds me of him. Yeah. But, and Jack Byrne too.
Tight. Virtual doesn't completely have it. I mean, the top 4 are decently tight. What is it, 11 points?
Yeah, it's real tight.
So you never know. Anything can happen.
Adam just put on the board that Woods is 17. So, yeah, he's got one more year of MX3 next year. And then Jack Byrne, I've said this many times. I wish Jack or someone would DM me. I don't know anything about him. I don't think he raced Pro MX. It says he's from Tasmania. I haven't really ever seen him around.
No relation to Michael Byrne?
No, I don't believe. Well, again, I could be wrong. I don't know. We don't know. I mean, he's from the bottom of the world down there in Tasmania. Yeah. But he's been challenging for podiums, running with those guys, and he's kind of came out of nowhere. So hats off to him. All right, guys. Well, JB, I think we've got a memory card limit of about 2 hours on the camera, and we're pretty close to that. So this has been the Inside Dirt Show. Adelaide wrap-up Marvel preview. Before we finish, I will get a Marvel preview.
All right.
Prediction, sorry.
Yeah.
Cooper Webb just won in Paris.
Yeah.
And I've never seen Webb look this good this early in the season.
Yep.
Normally off-season Webb is a whole different deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
But man, I mean, I know Jet won a lot of the races.
Well, all of them but one.
But
right?
one.
Yeah.
But I still feel Coops look better now than he ever has.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And I've done a lot of those off-season races with Coop. Typically he's 10 pounds overweight, doesn't really take those races too serious, and then comes into Anaheim, everyone doubting him, and then next thing you know, he's there and wins a championship or close to it. I love this Cooper Webb. And look, the older you get, the harder it is to be out of shape and then back in, and then out of shape and back in. And I know from knowing Coop personally, and we have a lot of the same friends, that even the off season, like typically Coop will, he'll have some beers, he'll hang out. Not recently,
None of that.
not this year. Like he's been so committed, dialed in, loves his motorcycle. I think he really gels with that team. He was so close to winning last year. And he gets it done in a different way than Jet does, Like Jet's, once again, we talked about Dino and Joey, but Jet, it's really hard to find any weakness. But somehow, some way, Coop can exploit it and get the job done when he needs to. And, Jet, I would say, dominated the weekend, but then their Coop is to pick up the pieces on that one bad race from Jet. Ran into a lapper, went down, and Coop wins, and that's what everyone will remember, in years
Absolutely.
to come.
That's the first thing I saw. Like I saw he won. I didn't see obviously we were in Adelaide, so I didn't have time to follow it. But that's how Coop gets it done, right? Like he will be there every gate drop when the track is, and that's what I think will hurt him at Marvel. He's really good at turning down low when there's 7 ruts across the turn.
Yeah.
And we're not going to get that at Marvel.
Yeah.
And obviously Jet. But I also hear, I don't know how true this is, but I hear that the bikes for the Lawrences aren't coming from the States. I don't know what bikes they're riding, which may even the playing field a little bit.
Yeah, I think it will. I definitely think it'll even the playing field. Also, it's such a double-edged sword for guys like Jet and Hunter and even Coop. Like, it really depends on how motivated you are this time of year. And I feel like Cooper's very, very motivated. I just feel like Jet and Hunter, they took more time off than they had in years previous, which they needed to. Obviously, their main focus is to win in America starting in January and to be their best selves then. And also, I think to come over here is amazing for the fans. It's amazing for everyone to see them again. They hadn't been here in a long time. Obviously, Jet was here in 19 on a 250, but Hunter hasn't been here, I think, since he left for Europe. So it's going to be cool for them to come home. And I think that's their mindset is they're strong enough mentally that even if Coop does beat him, look, they're going to want to beat Coop, but Coop's also going to want to beat them in their home country.
Yeah.
So I think either way it goes, it's going to be great for us. But I do feel like Coop is as motivated as ever. And we'll see what happens. But, yeah, I don't think the track suits Coop quite as good as it does Jet.
Yeah, I think it'll be more suited to them. But when I heard about I anticipated bikes coming from Europe. Like they've got their bikes for the nations, went to Paris Supercross. They would come here, but apparently not. Yeah. I don't know how true that is, but if anything, it's not a bad thing for the fans. I think that may be a bit of a, obviously they're not just going to rock up with a set of bars. They're going to have components, but it will be interesting. And obviously, they're going to want to win in Australia. It's been a long time.
They are, yeah. Yeah, but like you said, it will even the playing field a little bit. I have heard the same thing. I don't know if they'll have their full factory bikes, but I also think it's a testament to how great these bikes are nowadays. Like you can rock up at that level, bring some suspension, bring an ECU, bring bits and pieces, maybe a front brake, stuff like that. Like you can travel a couple suitcases and create a really good motorcycle.
Done that for many years, right? Yeah. Like I know you had bikes over here from the States, but I know you also went to Paris or Geneva and would have done that. So. Yep. They are a lot closer than they used to be from a production level. But all right, JB. So obviously, Marvel wraps up the series. Other than the hectic schedule you've just got yourself into, going to all the Supercrosses and the SMX playoff rounds. Finish up here on this question? What does life look like for Justin Brayton at home? You got your business ventures. What do you get up to on a weekly basis?
Yeah. So. Actually in the middle of a sale. I own 2 dealerships in Charlotte, North Carolina, called 10 Cycles. I'm in the process of selling both of those. So that'll be finalized in the next month or so. And then, just the broadcast stuff, really excited about that. I've got 3 kids at home that keep me really, really busy and try to spend as much time with them as possible. obviously my wife, and a couple little business ventures here and there, but mainly the broadcasting is really going to soak up some time, and doing some ambassador deals that I'm finalizing at the moment. So the biggest thing for me is just being in and amongst the sport that I love the most. I mean, I'm such a huge fan of Supercross and motocross all around the world. So to still be involved at this capacity, I couldn't be happier, and excited to be in Marvel next weekend to see what goes down with the Australian, obviously the Supercross Championship, but also the battle between Coop and Lawrence brothers, and then the anticipation for Anaheim 1. It's right around the corner.
It is, man. All right, guys. Inside Dirt Show. That's going to be a wrap on the Adelaide review and the Justin Brayton podcast. Justin, thanks for coming in, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. That was fun.
Great to chat, and thanks for listening. And obviously the video studio we have here now, the YouTube is up and running. So Inside Dirt on YouTube. There's a lot of good content on there from over the years, but the pods will be the focus moving forward. So make sure you guys check that out. And with that being said, we'll be back after Marvel Stadium for a recap on the Oz Supercross series, and we'll catch you guys then.